like more than 10 years ago. So 12 years ago. And I also have some family from Argentina. And so, I got kind of introduced like way early, but I stopped drinking coffee a couple times, but like the second time I really did a couple months, and then I started drinking mate because like it's the only thing that works, as a substitute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it works even better, but you're not going to be able to go to bed.
No, it's fine. It's not a strong one. It's
Okay.
a very soft one. But yeah, but welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You have this gift of making stuff simple and kind of digesting it in a way that people can understand it and understand it more easily, and that's very rare. And I like your content, and I thought, okay, let's talk, right? Because you're obviously talking about topics that interest me too. I think everyone that thinks about their thoughts and their actions is going to end up in these realms, right? And
Mhm.
so obviously for a lot of people it doesn't work, and maybe we can go into all these topics, why and how we can align our whole being, and everything that's not attached to the body. And yeah, I don't know where you want to start. I mean, you just moved to the States, I believe, right?
I moved to the States 9 years ago.
So you're there for a long time.
Yeah, I think I even manifested this.
Okay. So do you want to talk about that? Like, why did you move up there?
Well, when I moved, it was years ago. It was with my boyfriend who was
Mm,
American. Then he became my
okay.
husband. Then he became
Okay.
my ex-husband. But I think I manifested living in California. It's super interesting. I was like 20 years old and I got this big tattoo on my calf. Um, Huge, like this big tattoo of like a sunset at the beach with palm trees. And by that time, I was very, my family was lower middle class. I had never left the country. I didn't have a visa or anything. I didn't even know my American boyfriend then. There were no signs in my material reality that I was ever going to live in California. But I got this tattoo thinking that I love California, even though I had never been. And I was like, I just love the beach. I want to get it. And it's crazy because years later, I end up moving to the US. I'm living in Denver. I get a divorce. I divorce my husband, my American husband, and I'm like alone there. And I decided that I wanted to move to California. And I wrote down like, kind of like as if it was an Instagram caption saying, 5 years ago, I got this tattoo thinking of California. And now I live across the street from the beach. And I was like, I wrote it down as if it was in present moment. I wasn't into manifesting at that point. I don't know why I decided to do that. And literally a month later, I moved to San Diego, 1 block from the beach. And every time I look at my tattoo, it looks exactly like the views I have here in California.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Sometimes, I think it's just our soul telling us, where to go, and then we kind of look back and we're like, hey, maybe that was manifestation, but maybe it's also divine timing. Maybe it's just like it's supposed to be our path. Maybe you can also go into that. Like, how much do you think it is divine timing, and when is it divine timing? When is it manifestation? When is it just stuff happening, right? And do you think our path is like written out already? Like, what's your take on that?
Well, I don't think our path is written in the sense that I do believe that all realities exist around us at the same time. And it is just us who like perceive certain version of the reality and live outside all of the others. Because I don't think time is linear. I do think that it is more the version of you who's already there, kind of like being in contact with you, telling you this is the path, or telling you do this, or I honestly, I don't know exactly how it works, but I do know that back then when I was getting this tattoo, and I do know that back then when I was in Denver thinking of moving to San Diego, the Ariana that I am now living in San Diego already existed because time doesn't exist. So in that sense, there's certain divine information, I would say.
Mm.
What do
Yeah,
you
that
think?
concept of time. Yeah, that concept of time is interesting, because I also, we just have the present, right? And it's all we have, right? And I think, we can also go into that, quantum field and all these different topics. And because, time is probably, like this reality is probably happening, in many formats at the same time, right? So, we are some other form somewhere else at the same time, at this time, right? At being at this time. And I mean, if you've changed your reality through, let's say a lifestyle change, right? And all of a sudden you drop that mask that you've been wearing, your perception of life gets different, right? Like that life is completely different from that moment onwards, right?
Hmm.
And you're in the same body, let's say. And I mean, once you've done that lifestyle change, and once everything else changes because of that, you understand, okay, damn, like this really is a concept, right? That is kind of, true. And I mean, there's a lot of people that I talk to about this concept, and time is super interesting. But like, how do you think that, we, like, how much of that is programming when we grow up, as kids? And do you think if we wouldn't have that programming, like, where would that whole perception of life go? Especially with kids. I have two sons now, and I'm very, I try to be very, cautious with what I teach them, and how much I tell them of my reality, because I want them to experience it, through their eyes, right? So I kind of try to open up as much as I can for them, so they can just, go for it, right?
I think conditioning is everything. But I have two viewpoints on this, because on one side, I think that, I always think, oh my God, how much I would have liked to know all of these things when I was younger. I would be at such a different place. I think about all of the limiting beliefs that adults have imposed on me, and then society, like every single client I work with presents this lack of self-worth, and all of their issues come down to lack of self-worth. And we live in a society that constantly profits from telling us that we are unworthy. From In order for capitalism to exist, we all need to feel constantly that something is missing, because otherwise you don't buy. If you don't
Yeah.
feel like something is missing, you don't go and look for satisfaction in material things. You don't go and buy anti-aging creams and do all of these beauty treatments that destroy your body, just because there's a system telling you that you are not enough, that you should be skinnier or thicker or taller or shorter. So there's a lot of it. But then the other way that I look at it is, well, I also think that we are creating that reality. Like the reality that I am experiencing from you right here, right now, to the system telling me I'm not enough, is also my creation. Because at the end of the day, I think everything is thought form. So from a more like esoteric perspective, I think that everything is simply a projection of me. But from a more like grounded perspective, I think that conditioning is everything. And once we change the conditioning, and we can change it at the different levels, from how I perceive reality to how my nervous system responds to that reality, and how I perceive myself, that's when reality immediately reflects that.
Mm. Yeah, it's basically a lot of how do I react to certain circumstance,
Yeah.
right?
And,
It's it's,
and
it's all about that.
and about stopping, right? We live in a constant autopilot, where there's a stimulus, and we just immediately react and react and react. And every time we react, we're reacting from the same patterns that are usually of survival, right? They come from this, again, conditioning of like, I am not loved. I am unlovable. I'm going to be abandoned. So something happens and I react from fear. I react from fight or flight. And then because I react that way, I create another situation of the same energetic level. And then that keeps happening and keeps happening. And I end up thinking that's life. And then you realize, oh, that's not life. That's just the life I have been creating.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, how much do you think when we say, okay, we have to control our thoughts. We have to, get rid of, like, let's say, these negative patterns. And then, we have these people in our lives that are constantly negative, and, you want to get them out of your life at some point, because you say, okay, they're always pulling me back to these old patterns. But then again, you just said, okay, we're creating our own reality. Like, where's that sweet spot, like
Mm.
between those two?
That's something I have been trying to find balance on lately, because
Mm,
I like to think that every single person in my life is reflecting something about me. Whenever I am judging someone, I am judging myself. There's some, when you look at someone and you can admire them because of, I don't know, because of their intelligence or because of their drive or because of their curiosity. And then you realize the fact that I can admire those things about that person, and someone else would look at that person and not even see those things, is because those things exist in me.
mm,
So when there's someone that is constantly draining me, I can decide to take space from that person or to never talk to them again. But I think the main key is to ask myself why I am manifesting them. Why am I perceiving them in my reality first? Like, all realities exist at the same time, which means that all versions of that person exist. If I am experiencing that version of that person, I need to ask myself why. What part of me is creating that movie, right? Because reality is your movie. Your mind is the projector. So what part of my mind is projecting this attitude in this person? Whether I let them go or not, then that's a decision. But if you don't do the work of asking why this is happening, then the next person that comes around will be the same.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with relationships, like
Oh my God.
it's like it's the best mirror, absolutely the best mirror. But yeah, I mean, once we understand, what the gist of it is, where that, let's say, problem lies, and we change, and then we still have that person in our lives. A lot of times it's like, let's say, a family member, right? Then it gets very difficult, right? Because okay, you've changed, you're not that same person anymore. Usually you wouldn't, attract in such a mindset, of the other person, but then you're still there, right? And then probably is a good time to say, okay, look, we have to kind of, slow down a bit with that relationship here. But
But
yeah.
when you change, the other person, if you truly change, the other person will also change how they show up to you. Because the point is that when you change and basically skip to a different timeline, right? You are interacting with a different version of that person. So if you
Yes.
truly change, the other person will also change.
Yeah. Yeah. I've experienced that especially with family constellation.
Oh, I love
Definitely.
family
Yeah.
constellations. Yes.
Yeah. I've done that. And that was very, very apparent. I did it at a session, in particular, this one session, and literally 2 days later, I could feel a change. Like it's truly remarkable. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Have you done
Yep.
that with your constellations?
I did family constellations, and I didn't perceive any change. I did perceive changes actually in my family, but it wasn't so obvious. But it
Mm,
did what family constellations did for me at that point, because back then I wasn't so much into all of this that I am into now. It was showing me the reality from a completely different perspective than what I was seeing. And then again, that's when you realize that reality is about perspective. Reality is not a certain way. You're labeling it all the time. Like, why is this happening to me? And maybe this is happening because it's going to give you the awakening of your life, and you are just stuck in friction, with reality, in friction with how this person is showing up, rather than realizing it all comes back to me.
mm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, let's start with the basics. Maybe that is a good kind of starting point with these topics. Like, what is 3D, 4D, 5D to you? That kind of, so people can follow up when we go and move into these more detailed kind of
I don't
realms.
go so deep into the dimensions, because I honestly think that unless you are constantly having mystical experiences where you really connect with the with higher consciousness, I don't think that for us humans there's a real way to know. I can read in a book, oh, there's 3D, 4D, 5D, right? But am I 1,000% sure? No. So I like to use them as reference. For example, 3D is your third dimension, your life, basically your reality, the things you can touch and stuff like that, right? 4D is the subconscious mind and the mind of the realm of thoughts and emotions. And then you have 5D, which is the quantum field and all of the realities that exist. Now, some people say that 5D is God. Some people say, no, 9D is God. To me, everything that exists is God. To me, this pen is God because it's made of atoms, and atoms are energy, and energy, everything that exists is God.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting topic. I try to, sometimes I go into religion, sometimes I go into these realms. I've been an altar boy when I was super little, and there was always something off for me, and then kind of digress out of that. And I was an atheist for a couple of years, and then you get into spirituality, and then you have these, plant medicine, and I've done this whole journey, right? And I've also like just focused on money and having fun in life, because I understood, okay, geopolitics, what goes wrong, there's no point in like building a family or that kind of stuff. I'm on the other side of the spectrum. Now I'm also working with humans, and went away from that. And so, frequency is super interesting to me as well. But like, you talk about manifesting fast, you've done a video about that. I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but just in general, before we go into this, language, right? Because it's also interesting to you. My first language is German, and I usually talk about these topics in English. Do you think there's a level that makes it more difficult to manifest if you're not using your mother tongue? Like, does it feel different on a cellular level? Have you tested that? Do you feel like there's a difference in efficacy in getting from where you from where you are to where you want to go if you stick to your mother tongue?
What do you mean because manifesting to me is more, you can explain manifestation in a language, but when you do it, you don't really use words, right? Unless you're doing a manifesting technique like the Tesla 369 method and stuff like that. But what do you mean in regards
just
to
in general, like the way you think, the way you interact, like, like there's Spanish ways of thinking, right? And there's English ways and there's German ways, right? Like the language is kind of like an expression of the way we operate, right? And I understand what you're saying in terms of, like the energetics of it, but like you start somewhere, right? Like exactly what you said, 369 method or the leaf method, imagination and stuff like that. But like it is attached to a language in the end, right? Like you do start with a journal, you do start writing down stuff, you get your thoughts on paper, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I was curious, because you obviously, also bilingual in that sense. And then, I haven't talked about anyone about that before. So maybe you have some thoughts on that. Maybe not. We can go somewhere else.
No, I don't really have thoughts on that. I do, for example, do subliminal audios, and people ask me, will it work the same if it's not my mother tongue? And I'm like, well, I guess it depends on, how you speak the language and stuff like that. When I manifest, I mainly use like sensations, because that's the thing, right? When you want to manifest something, that's why I think we cannot stop at affirmations. You can make your affirmations in your mother tongue as much as you want, but it's more about sensation. Your body has to be in tune. Your nervous system has to be in tune with that you're saying. You can make your affirmations as much as you want, but if for your nervous system, their desired reality feels like a threat, because to you being loved feels like a threat or feels so unfamiliar that it's dangerous, your body will continue to fight it, and your body will not be in harmony with that reality that you want to manifest. So I think that the language doesn't really matter. Again, then also I cannot talk much about it because I feel like pretty bilingual at this point. Like I think in English.
Yeah.
A lot.
I understand. Yeah. So what do you think you touched upon some pillars, but what are like the main pillars that have to be aligned in order for this to work? because I also like, especially, I work with people with their addictions. This is my calling now to do so. And I'm going like full on into this. And we work with programming and prisons, I call them, right? And one of my teachers, he's super deep in this. And I think if we don't loosen up these blockages, if we don't go into these, just how you just said, right? Like if you always perceive there's a threat out there, right? Like if your nervous system is always on alert, I have ADD, ADHD, like I've worked with that stuff a lot. And I agree, if you always think there's something bad happening out there, you're not going to be able to, manifest anything positive into this world, right? Like you're constantly in this fight or flight mode, right? But like, what are the main pillars? Let's start from the beginning and, wherever you want to take this.
Cool. So first of all, to me, the most important thing to understand is that we are manifesting all the time. Manifesting is not something you do here and there. Every single thought that you have is creative. That's why I always say attention is a prayer, because your prayer is literally what you're focusing on. If you're constantly focusing on the negative, if you're constantly focusing on your fears, oh, is my boyfriend cheating on me? Then if you give it enough thought, enough energy, enough emotion, it's going to manifest, right? So when it comes to manifesting, the main thing for me to understand is that we're doing it all the time and that there isn't one way of doing it. Like, I don't want people to think, oh, I have to follow this person or this person, and this person said this and this person said that. So what is the step by step? Manifesting is about your state of being. So we can talk about how to shift your state of being in order to manifest what you want to manifest. But the whole thing is about, it can be happening without even awareness, right? It's happening constantly without awareness. And I like what you said about removing the blocks, because that is the thing. Law of attraction is not really about attracting what you want. It's not really about creating the reality. That's language that we use. But the truth is that reality already exists. The reality you want, you don't need to change your reality, because your reality is infinite. What you need to change is what you're being able to basically perceive, because all realities exist all at once. And if you want to perceive a different version of reality, what you need to do is remove the blocks, like you said, that are stopping you from perceiving that version of reality. And that's when you need to look at the different levels. There's the level of perception, right? I cannot perceive something I don't believe in. So if I don't think that abundance is possible for me, it can be right there knocking the door and I'm not going to perceive it. And I have many examples in my life where those things happen, right? Then you have the next one, which is your nervous system. Even if you believe, okay, abundance may be for me, I'm going to open up a little more. If your nervous system basically labels that as unsafe, then your body will reject it. That's why we use so much meditation. You need to calm your nervous system. If you're constantly in fight or flight, if you're constantly stressed, if you're constantly in fear, then you're not going to manifest a state of being where you're happy and abundant, right? Yeah. And then the other layer is the self-identity. There's so many books that talk about this. Psycho-cybernetics is one of my favorites, that talks about how your self-image creates your reality. So if you don't believe that something is possible for you, if you don't choose to become the version of you for whom the reality that you want to create is natural, then you're going to be in friction. You can believe that it's possible because you have studied a million cases of people who started from the bottom and got that thing that you want. So you know it's possible. Then you meditate every day, you're chill. But if you don't do that identity shift of becoming the person for whom that happens naturally, then again, it's not going to happen. So it's removing at every single one of those levels the blocks that are literally filtering that reality from entering your perception. And then the change happens immediately. There's nothing to wait for. When we talk about manifesting takes time, in reality, that time is not really time. It's just the gap between you and perceiving that reality. So frequency.
Yeah. What takes time is you becoming that person.
Exactly. Is you removing those blocks, identifying them, right? And deciding to change. It's all about, if I had to choose one magic word for manifesting, it's change. That's why it's so hard.
Yeah, I say that the same with addictive tendencies. Like, you have to decide that you want to change. You have to decide that you want to stop drinking. You have to decide that you want to stop taking drugs. Once you decide, then you need to find your North Star, what you want to change for. Is that really strong enough? Do you really want to change for that? For me, it was family, like, because for me it was an okay reality, being like, I lived in a city, just going from event to event, just working, it's like having fun. And then, okay, my wife, she's pregnant. Okay, do I want to be that father? Right? No, because I cannot be present. I cannot be a loving father. I'm not emotionally available at all times, right?
And so I think that a lot of people can't change, not because they are lazy or whatever, but because we're not taught how powerful we are. If you know that changing will actually take you to the results that you want, then you're more inclined. But we are not taught about the power of our mind, the power of our awareness, the power of our thoughts. I think that's going back to conditioning, the way they condition us in schools, studying stuff that, like, forcing us to study stuff that we are not interested in, forcing us to, like telling us that we're smart or we aren't, depending on tests that are completely random and that have nothing to do with our own gifts, with our own authenticity. Nobody teaches us to connect with that authenticity. So in a system where we're always feeling like something is lacking, addiction is the answer. It's designed for that. Like, it's like the way in which race is designed for that, because you're constantly feeling like something is missing and you want to fill that hole with alcohol or with substances.
Yeah, that's totally one angle, like what you said before with, with the conditioning. I think actually on the contrary, like, it's on purpose, we're kept there. Like, on purpose, we're told we're weak. On purpose, we're kept away from our powers. On purpose, we're constantly distracted. That's why we have weekends, right? That's why we have these entertainment events, called sports, right? All entertainment companies, and people getting drunk, and then just focusing on that crap, right? But yeah, that what you just said about addiction is definitely one of the angles. The other angle for me, for example, was just to slow my system down, right? Like, I was all over the place mentally. So I said, okay, if I have a couple of beers, like, I'm slower, I fit into the group, right? I fit into the school, because that's how it started, right? Like, just how you said it. You go to school, you kind of, you need more input, but then you don't have the pedagogues there. They're not teachers. They're just people there that want a safe job, right? So they don't know how to handle it. And then you kind of always, like, on the sidelines, you get kicked out, and then you try to fit in, you try to slow your system down, and you get addicted to, handling your dopamine in a different way. Yeah. But interesting. But where were we before? I lost my thread. But let's talk about yeah, I think it's super interesting, because especially with, so many people that I now am in touch with about these topics, it's, people always think it's just substances and stuff like that. Now we have the phone, right? Like, hours and hours of games. I mean, with the youth, we have less alcoholism, but there's, like, more phone addiction, but it's not talked about. Like, I don't know. Do you think? I mean, surely it is distraction, right? It is taking away the power, that phone, wherever it is right now. It's just so powerful. I mean, especially the new ones that came out, I can feel the difference, because I still have an old one, and the new iPhone is just, it's a machine that's incredible. It kind of is, it is hypnosis on a different level, right? Like, what was your feeling with that? Like, do you feel like, we have to put that stuff away as much as we can, or because in the end we kind of have to integrate it with life, or should, in a sense.
I think we have to integrate it because we have no choice.
Yeah.
But I think we need to turn towards community. I think that all of these, the phones, the devices, the social media, you need to really stop and think about how you're being controlled through these tools.
Yeah.
Like they are hearing you constantly. They are choosing what to show you, what not to show you. They are, how do you say it, like banning certain phrases, certain
Yeah.
topics. So basically they are constantly manufacturing your
Shadow banning.
reality and your consent, and manufacturing your perception.
Mm.
And that's why I think we need to lean towards community. There's no liberation without community. That's why we need to continue to, find spaces to to hang out with each other, and support each other and heal together outside of what social media and these devices are allowing you to to do, because it's very limited. They decide whenever they want, when they ban it, what they ban, what you can say, what you cannot say. And it turns almost, sometimes I feel like, that book Fahrenheit for, I don't remember the name,
Mm.
by Ray Bradbury, that is about like this society that is completely controlled. Books are burned. Nobody can have a book and stuff like that. I feel like we are existing in a society where that is happening at a level where we cannot really perceive it that much if we're not paying attention. That's why I would say always, like, pay attention. Don't let your thoughts to be manufactured by something external, and lean towards community. Find your people and really find spaces to hang out in person, because that's where you cannot let them stop you, from like talking about certain topic or
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah, but
that.
that's what they mimic, right? With these devices, they mimic community,
That's
but
the
it's a
issue.
that's a very shallow level. And like I started with gaming, that was kind of my first addiction, let's say, right? Like or my first outlet, because it felt good. Felt good to just be good at something, and put 8 hours a day into that, and you just have community, right? Like
Hmm.
you game with the same people. It's exactly that, but it's not it doesn't fulfill the soul. It doesn't fulfill the heart, right? It's just that top layer, the brain layer, that get that dopamine rush, and you think it's actually fulfilling and it's getting you somewhere, but it's going the other way.
Exactly, that, like shopping,
Mm.
like everything. It's just, I think we need to come back to, it comes down to figuring out what's taking you away from your authenticity.
Yeah.
Because I think that authenticity is where magic happens. And if social media is taking you away from that, if you are finding yourself having to shape yourself in order to fit into somewhere, or for example, gaming, so I numb myself, that's when we end up depending on external validation or external substances or external, when happiness exists, when we can meet that authenticity. But that is literally what we are conditioned to suppress our whole life. Since you're 80 years old and you're put in a classroom and you're being told to be still for
Yeah.
6 hours and not make noise and not be yourself, and you end up being, Pink Floyd has like this um, movie, Pink Floyd The Wall, where like everyone is entering this gateway where they leave being like completely brainwashed with a television head. I feel
Mm.
like that is reality, and that's why we need to escape from it.
Yeah, it's a tough one. My son tried going to the kindergarten, and it's impossible for him to stay there. He cannot stay there. He doesn't want to go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I let him, I let him stay home if he wants to, because I struggled throughout school, and yeah, I'm just not gonna force him into that.
What are you gonna do then? Are you gonna homeschool him, or?
Yeah, there's different levels to it. That some form of homeschooling. We're thinking about like different concepts, right? Because there are different concepts out there. Maybe also build community. Let's see.
Mhm.
It's not an easy one, especially now we're here on an island. There's not that many people that have the same thought processes that we do, and
Yeah.
maybe we have to move. Yeah, let's see.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, but as long as you're flexible, I think it's doable. Yeah, but I don't think it's like you should be like unflexible with your children, right? Like that's the worst kind of approach. Just to do it because everybody does it is totally the wrong approach.
Oh my God. Look, when I was a kid, um, my mom always taught me to think by myself. She always said, do not let anyone tell you what you need to think, not even your teacher. She's like, I don't care what the teacher says. You think by yourself. And if you don't agree, you don't agree. Right. And when I was a little kid, all of my classmates were going to Catholic church to do I don't know how you call it, the Catholicism classes. I don't know how to call it. And to then do the communion, right? I think I lost you. There we go.
Yeah, just keep going. It's always recording.
Okay, cool. So I remember one of my classmates was like, my mom told me that if you don't go to these Catholicism classes, you're going to hell. So I went to my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm going to go to hell. I want to go to these classes. And my mom told me, look, you can be someone who spends their day with a Bible under her arm and then is a terrible person, or you can embody God. And I'm like, and what's God? And she's like, give me a hug. And I give her a hug. And she's like, what do you feel? And I'm like, love. And she's like, that's God. You know how the fridge is plugged into the wall and you are not, and yet you are alive? That is God energy in you. If God is love, we can actually do something loving for the community instead of spending time going to church so that someone reads to you what the Bible means. If then you still want to know what the Bible means, then you can read it yourself and you can decide what it means. But I'm not going to take you anywhere so someone else reads the Bible to you and tells you how you have to interpret it. So since I was 8 years, younger, my mom was like, do not follow the masses, do not follow, so I learned from a very young age that following the masses is what keeps us sick, because it is not a sign of health to be well adjusted to a sick society, which undoubtedly we live in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, it's external, right? Like the power is external. They take away the power with that concept.
Exactly. You want to connect to God, you have to go to the church. What?
Yeah.
God exists in me.
Yeah. And then there's hell, right?
Exactly.
And if you don't do this, then you will get there, right? Like, which is, I mean,
and they paint it as if they are places to go, right? There's heaven and there's hell. And when you die, you can go to heaven or you can go to hell. Then I understood that both heaven and hell are simply states of consciousness. If you are thinking negatively, you are in hell. If you are constantly in fear, you literally live in hell. And I think we've all been in hell, right?
For sure.
And the Adam and Eve story, where it's like, oh, she ate the apple, so they went to hell or something like that. So I think that that's simply a metaphor for the mind and the body. Like the mind ate the apple, meaning the mind thought negative thoughts, and therefore the mind lived in hell. Therefore, the physical body became the physical reality became hell. You know what I'm saying?
No, I understand.
So I feel like we always are choosing whether we eat the apple or bite the apple or not. Do I want to engage with this negative thought and the next one and the next one and the next one? Or do I want to remind myself that I am creating my reality, that it's not that serious, that I can choose how to react in this moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember this one cartoon when I was a kid. There was like this little angel, the devil angel, and then the actual one, like just talking to the mind, right? And this was the first time I'm like, okay, fuck, this is not like, this is internal, right? Like it's not something external, because they made it like that understanding, of that same mind, just choosing what side it wants to be on at a certain time. It's
Mm-hmm.
super interesting. Yeah.
As if and again, then things happen to you, right? Like, oh, this happened to me.
Mm.
It's external. And then the good, the happiness is also external. And then you realize nothing happens to you. Look, can I tell a little story?
Sure.
So when I was a few years ago, I got cheated on. And in the moment, my reaction was, uh, I don't deserve this. And also, what everyone was telling me was like, you don't deserve this, because I was a great girlfriend, right? And in the moment, I reacted in the worst way possible. I don't recommend to anyone. All I wanted to do was seek revenge, destroy him, whatever. Years later, when once I started understanding this stuff, I realized that I was not a victim. Of course, he shouldn't have cheated, whatever. But this guy was gonna cheat. The fact that he cheated on me, the fact that I manifested that into my reality, had to do with my own darkness. I can go through the healing phase of being cheated on by telling myself, poor me, I didn't deserve this, I deserve better. But if I stay in that, the next guy is also gonna be horrible. The point is to ask myself, okay, what in me is at the same vibrational level of cheating? Because like attracts like. So even if I didn't cheat on him and therefore I think I don't deserve to be cheated on, I need to ask myself what aspect of me, what darkness in me attracted that darkness. And that's how you stop that from happening. So the cheating was not external. I was not a victim of it. I was creating that from a lack of self-worth, the belief that I am unlovable, etc. Right? So that's what you need to check. Not only my lack of self-worth and why am I manifesting someone who doesn't love me, but also be honest with yourself and ask yourself, like, what is at a same vibrational level in me? What attitudes, what toxic patterns? And I promise you'll find them.
Yeah, beautifully said. Because that's oftentimes what most people don't get. They think, okay, someone cheated on me, like I would never cheat, so why is the other person cheating, right? Like they put just that action on one level, but just like you said, it's frequency, right? Like it's what darkness is in you that the other person just brought in front of your face, right? Like it's super super well said. Because with me, it happened as well, and it actually was the catalyst for that whole change, right? Like me from that old life to my new life, right? Because I said, okay, fuck, this is me, using drugs and substances on a daily basis, and my aura is leaking. I have all these wrong people around me, I'm focusing on the wrong shit, like my vibration is probably low as fuck, right? But that was also one of the main catalysts. So super super interesting, and I think it's a good wake up, right? Like it's a proper slap. Like with me, it was a proper slap because there was also a friend involved, right? And my former partner, and I'm like, holy shit, how did I not see this coming? And
Mm-hmm.
I even connected them for work and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm like, why the fuck did I not see that coming? And then the first reaction was also super pissed, and but then again in the end afterwards, it all happened for you.
It
Yeah.
happened for you,
it's,
exactly.
it's just so beautiful, and I thank both of them, now. But yeah, of course, takes a while to get there.
Yeah, that's why rock bottom is a great place to be, because something amazing is coming if you can look at your own what needs to change in you.
100%. Yeah. Not
Because
pointing
rock
fingers.
bottom,
Yeah.
no, but like, well, that's the thing. I always point the fingers at me, like my friends sometimes, if I'm in a bad relationship or something, my friends will tell me like, why do you allow this into your life, right? Why are you accepting it? And it's true that we need to look at, okay, what's the lack of self-worth in me that is making me accept this treatment? But then you also need to look at yourself and be like, okay, in what ways am I that person? In what ways does that exist in me too? Am I being toxic? Am I being, because you're not perfect either, right? And you are going to constantly attract what vibrates with you. So it's never like this person did this to me. Is why did I create that movie? This is my movie. What in me created it?
Yeah. Yeah. You always like to say you're the projector, right? And you still put the energy into that projector, projecting your life at this point in time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what are your favorite techniques? Let's get a bit practical. If you could just choose like one or two that you want to talk about.
Um, what I found most effective for me was, um, first of all, visualization, meditating, calming down the nervous system, and then visualizing that desired reality. But I'm going to say something. You need to be able to maintain it. Sometimes you will manifest something and then you will snap back at where you were. And that has to do with, there has to be really a change in your state of being that is permanent. If you simply visualize something, you can bring it into reality. But if you don't maintain the nervous system welcoming that state of being, you're going to snap back at it, right? So there's many layers in order to manifest. For example, in my opinion, you're not going to consciously manifest something that you like if you don't believe it's that you want, if you don't believe that change is possible, if you don't believe that you are creating your reality. It's going to be hard to take one of these techniques and be successful with it. But if you do believe that you are changing your reality, then you can literally use the Tesla's 369, for example. To me, that one has been super useful.
Mhm.
For those who don't know what it is, there's many ways of doing it, but basically you write an affirmation where you state that you're thankful for something that you want to happen already happening, right? For example, let's say I want a new car. I am so thankful for my new car, and you specify what car, right? And you write it down, that affirmation, you write it down 3 times in the morning, and then you write it down 6 times in the afternoon, and then you write it down 9 times in the evening. Again, some people do this technique differently. This is how I have been doing it. And I always save the papers where I wrote down what I do. And I look back and it's insane how many things came true. And I'm like, I didn't even realize I had written this down this way, That is one of my favorites. The other one, I really like the glass of water technique. Do you know
Mm.
that one?
Yeah, maybe go for it.
Maybe. So, well, first of all, let's talk about water. There's these Japanese scientists that wrote a book about how water molecules change according to the awareness that it's being put on it, right? So if I look at the water and I tell it nice things, the water molecules become brighter and more symmetric and beautiful. And then if I insult the water or ignore it, then it becomes dull. It's insane how you can observe at a molecular level the power of awareness. So basically, it all teaches us that you can pray to your water. So there's this technique where you write down exactly like a statement, like I'm so thankful because this happened, right? And then you fold the paper, you put it on top of the glass of water and you pray to the water. Basically, you just like imagine that in that water, you're putting the energy of the wish fulfilled. And then you drink the water as if it was your magic potion that is going to jump you into the reality that you want to go to. And that one has worked also amazingly for me. And then other than that, visualizing a lot. And well, the whole point is to act as if the wish already has been fulfilled, right? So you have to be a little bit delusional.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's like building a business from scratch. You have to be delusional. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah, because I mean, water is just, I mean, that's a whole podcast for itself, but it stores information. I just like recently saw something else, like it informs even, they were testing like with seeds and stuff like that. And like it's just crazy. I mean, I try to get a water specialist on the podcast as well. I have like one or two in mind. I haven't contacted them yet, but that's definitely on my list.
Oh, I'm
But
excited for that.
yeah, definitely. And I haven't done that one yet. Interesting, because I never thought about that. And because I grew up in a home, we always had organic food, and there's this one uh, water brand in Germany, and they have written words inside of the label that's on top of the glass
Yeah.
bottle, right? So it is constantly informing. And I always thought, okay, why is that? When you're a kid, you just see it, like you see it from the other side, right? And you don't know, you just
Mm-hmm.
think they wanted to like look cool and stuff like that. But now you understand, okay, it was actually informing the water and getting the
Mm-hmm.
information in there. Super interesting. And I mean, if I kind of went to permaculture a bit, because we had this project here planned. And once you understand, okay, how it works, like with animals and what water they drink, and then how the meat is afterwards, like you start thinking about these things, especially with the plants as well, right? Like if you have a spring water there, if you have a well versus the shit that comes out of the pipe, like it's just incredible. And then obviously that's where they control whole societies, like fluoride and all kind of beautiful stuff that they put in, and people just don't believe you. I mean, I think it's becoming more aware, or people are becoming more aware about these issues. And I
Mm.
think also where you are at, like surely that stuff is talked about.
And even what you said about how they control us, I think that it even comes down to how we are taught of these things. We're not taught of nature as alive. We are taught of nature as something that is a resource and something
Mm,
that is for us, like as if the whole planet existed for our convenience, right? There's a book called Braiding Sweetgrass.
mm,
Do you know
no.
about it?
Mm,
And it talks about indigenous practices. And there's a chapter on animosity, and it talks about how in certain indigenous cultures, everything in nature is not a noun. For example, water is not a noun, river is not a noun, they are verbs. So they don't refer to water as the water. Water is, let's say, watering, right? Because everything in nature is alive. And I think that that separation between man and nature is one of the main misconceptions that we have, right? We are not in harmony with all of these souls around us, the water, the earth. Um, and that
yeah.
is one thing that I think we need to bring back to the talk of manifesting and stuff like that. There's a lot of talk about manifesting and stuff. And I think that many lack the, this, like we need to look back at indigenous cultures, I think, and their way of being and their way of interacting and their way of respecting the earth, because manifesting will not be useful if the planet is on fire. So starting there also,
Yeah.
deconstructing the views that we have of the world and nature and
Yeah, I agree.
understanding its power.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the work I do now is, I'm building a holistic approach to, this whole addiction space, right? Like I've done this whole journey myself. I've had like so many different coaches and teachers and mentors and doctors that I work with, but everyone was for like a specific problem. Let's say I wanted to detox, I went to this doctor, and it took me 2 years to detox from whatever, right? But like no one was really approaching it from a holistic standpoint, right? And with holistic, I also mean the soul, right? I also mean all the subconscious, right? Like all these programs that
Yeah.
run us and that inform our realities. And a lot of therapists, they only work on the mental, right? Like they look
Mm-hmm.
for the blockage, they look for the child abuse, they look for the trauma, right? But they completely forget about the body, or they completely forget to align all of these different pillars in our life, right? So we can be successful in all of them. Because if you're lacking one of the main pillars, you will always fall back to these old systems of yours, right? Like you
Yeah.
will prefer to be tipsy and to be wasted because it's not working in your favor, right? So you have to align all of these, and that's basically what I'm doing, right? I'm trying to incorporate all of them, and that therefore it takes a while, right? Like you cannot do this in 2 weeks in the clinic.
Yeah,
It's impossible. Like it took me years to get to this point. And
exactly.
so it takes like my absolute minimum of a program is 90 days, right? But like I think there's going to be many more that will need a lot more than that and need more time with that. But where I wanted to go is because I talked about holistic approach, right? Like in indigenous tribes, I'm a proponent of plant medicine. I think it's wonderful, but surely you have to do the work first and a lot of other aspects. But I did Iboga last year for the first time. I don't know if you know it. It's like
No.
from yeah, it's like an African. Uh, it's a grandfather from Africa, just how ayahuasca is a grandmother from South America, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's a tree, right, from Central Africa, and it's the root. And I went there to work on my nervous system, right? And what was interesting about that was, because let's say you take an LSD, right, and you have all these visuals, and there's not really much choice, right? Like you will see all of that, right? But with
Hmm.
the Iboga, it was an interaction. Like it was, I was talking back and forth, and because I was working on my nervous system, I was getting these old memories like surfed one after the other for me to dissolve them, and
Okay.
stuff that I didn't even believe that was still, in my system, like really old stuff, right?
Mm.
Because we talked about this, what is still running your subconscious, because what you think is actually not what really goes on, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it was just there, it's like many hours. You can basically go for 2 or 3 days, if you're more experienced. But like this time it was I think a little less than 15 hours I was doing,
Wow.
the ceremony. And yeah, it just brings you, to this realm where all of a sudden you have, stuff come up that you didn't believe was even bothering you, in a sense, or was even a layer on top of your, healthy nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
So
you were not into that, you would have went to big pharma and gotten a pill to cover the symptom, and that's it. You never
yeah,
discovered that there was a memory that you just needed to make peace with or whatever,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I've been there, I've taken all these pills, and yeah, but if your soul will tell you that it's not for you, right? Like for me, I knew, okay, but I became this robot, right? Like I could focus, I could sit down and do my case study, and like build a new product and sell online, and do all that stuff for the whole day, and then drink at night and fall to bed, and that's it. But like you become a robot, and your soul will tell you, and you have these wake up calls. But most people, they obviously don't want to listen. But they eventually, for me, pain was big enough, so I had to listen, and I wanted to listen then. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it happens.
The thing is that many people, when you're being told, like through pain, right? Hey, this is not good. This doesn't feel good. Something needs attention. A lot of people, if you are very embedded in this system, and if you truly like still haven't awakened
Mm,
from like the lies of the system and the alienation of the system with again our nature and stuff like that, then you will think there's something wrong with you. And
mm,
that's exactly what happens. It's like, oh, something is wrong with me because I have anxiety and depression, and I am not being able to be very functional at my 9 to 5. And then you realize it wasn't your soul's purpose to live that 9 to 5, to do that 9 to 5 and stuff like that. So the point is that people like you were able to listen. Many people are able to listen, but many just think, oh, there's something wrong with me. Oh, anxiety runs in my family. All of my family had anxiety, so I'm prone to this, so I have to take these pills. And it's like, no, wake up.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying if you're taking pills, stop. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is consider that something needs attention, something inwards, right? And the system is not even giving you the time or space for you to go back in.
Mm. Yeah, this intergenerational stuff is definitely also interesting, because people then say, okay, my grandfather had this, so now I have it, and I can't do anything about it. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, That way I can assure you that there's you can do something about it. With me it was definitely alcoholism. Like that was the hardest one for me to handle and to get rid of by far. Yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
'cause, yeah, it's in the lineage. Like my grandfather, functioning alcoholic. And it's there, right? Like you have a different way of handling it. Because when you are functional with substances, right? Like you're not laying in bed and you can't do anything, but you're functional and you actually feel good and you have more energy. That's when it really is a problem, because like you just push it, right? And it gets over years and years. You just keep going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's why again, the problem is systemic too, right? You can look inward, like we can do all of the work of looking inward and doing the meditations and doing everything, but we also need to work on fixing. No, not fixing. I'm going to very intentionally use the word dismantle the system that is keeping us in those spaces where it's like, oh, I need to be functional. So I need to suppress my anxiety. I need to take Adderall so I'm focused and let's get this bread, because we're destroying ourselves and the earth.
Yeah. 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 Me, when I was younger, I always tried to push these topics onto people. I learned about like geopolitics very early, and just went super deep, and I try to educate people, but people don't want to listen. They have to be at their own stage in time, and when they want to comprehend these topics, then they will start listening to that, right?
Yeah.
And so the only thing you can do is actually like focus on yourself, right? Like if you focus on you, you bring your vibration up, your frequency, you will be able to offset a lot of that shit that goes out there, or goes on out there, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the conversations like this, I think, is what helps, right? Because like, someone that's kind of feeling and sensing there's something wrong. Now they listen to this, and they know, okay, now maybe I should look into these topics. Right. But it's
Exactly.
passive. It's not me pushing anything onto that person, but
Mm-hmm.
they're listening to it because they want to listen to it. And
Mm-hmm.
then, there's a possibility. It's a different approach, right?
And it's not complaining, because I'm saying if you're going to spend the day complaining about the system, then you're going to create a miserable reality for yourself. But it is
Yeah.
about shedding light into it, because people need to also understand that they're not broken. You're not broken. You were born in a system, in a family, whatever, that, where you basically absorb the core beliefs of, well, this is reality. This is me. This is my value. My value depends on my worth. If I don't have money, I am not nobody, blah, blah, blah. So I think if we're going to talk about manifesting and about transforming your reality, we need to bring the topic of, hey, it's not your fault. You are in a system that makes everyone sick, even the earth. But it is your responsibility to change what's hurting you so you can change your reality.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, when my son was these few times he went to the kindergarten, all of a sudden he heard the word shame, right? He's never heard that word before, but like, you put him in a group, shame comes up, right? Because it's used
Mm-hmm.
here, quite frequently. And I'm like, it's just crazy, right? Like how they like basically unintentionally program these kids already. Shame on you for doing this. Shame on you for being
Yeah.
a child. Like shame on you for doing something like out of curiosity. you know
Yes. Uh-huh.
yeah.
And boys
Yeah.
don't cry. And you
Yeah.
need to listen to the teacher and do what the teacher says.
Mm. Yeah. And then on the other hand, you have truth and being authentic, right? Which is kind of, to me, it's the highest frequency.
Exactly.
you know
Exactly.
yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, we have to watch out, especially for our kids. That's kind of my mission. I understood that it's impossible to change our generation. We're not going to change the masses. Like there's 10% that start thinking about this stuff, and then they are able to offset, and they are able to change, and that we can shed light on these topics, but we can only really change the next generation and help them grow into a different matrix, and have a different system that's maybe a little bit more flexible for them, right? Where they have more space to breathe. Like how do you
Yeah.
how do you see that? Do you think there's the possibility to change like that generation that we're in, or are you also more into focusing on the next?
I don't focus on the next much. Honestly, I know we have to, but I personally, with my work, I'm not going to tell you, oh, yes, I do, because I don't even, work with younger generations and stuff like that. In fact, having kids, not having kids is something that I think about a lot, because I'm like, I'm scared, I'm not going to lie. We are seeing a rise in fascism in the world, and that scares me. But I do think that the change that is important is is in being the light, and basically not trying to preach, but more trying to show the transformation that can occur in someone when they begin to be loyal to their authenticity and discover their purpose and discover who they are, rather than living in this robot mode, and that's when we are going to start getting people to discover themselves more, and then begin to use their attention, their energy, their time, their resources towards growth, rather than the 9 to 5. Like, I always think, what would happen if all of these people that are working for evil corporations were doing what they love? We would need less doctors, because people would be less sick. We would need less pills, because people would be less sick and stuff like that. So I think that it is about, yes, right. Like raising the new generations with these new insights, but then also helping people wake up, not from a preaching perspective, but by being the light, by showing how transformation can happen and stuff like that. Because the more people awaken, the more people will begin to take space from all of these institutions that are controlling literally the whole world. Because when you think about it, the whole world is being controlled by the rich, by certain governments, by certain corporations. And that is all made up of people. The more people start waking up, the more people will stop, depending on those institutions, and the more we're going to bring the power back to the people. It's all about power to the people, in my opinion, and away from all of these institutions and systems that are controlling how we think, what we eat, everything.
Yeah, we could go into and make a little bit more of a political discussion out of this.
It's not my intention. It's not my intention.
No, but I have a lot of opinion about this, of course. Like anything that we see in the world happening is controlled. Like, especially, because like my perception of it is a bit different. Like I don't think there's more fascism. I don't think there was ever a lot of fascism. It was just always like a focus on that, because it was supposed to be the focus on that. Now what you see in the news, it's supposed to look like this, right? Like they want you to think it's that way, because in the end, I don't think we're left or right, and we're either human or we're not, and I think the essence of humanity is not, exclusion. It's not separation, right? It's unity and it's love. That's the essence of our reality, I would say, and then you have all these, surely some sick people, and maybe they're not 100% human, and maybe, there's already a Neuralink in a lot of them, because that shit has already been rolled out. And like, how do you expect like these people to operate? It's not really, a human decision making anymore, right? Because I think if you really boil it down, if you take all these limitations out of the way, people want to be in community, just like you said, and they want to get along with each other.
Yeah, people want to be in community.
Yeah. So maybe you have a strong opinion about this, but what I wanted to add about what you said before is, with your work or with my work, we are fixing, possibly helping fix some future parents, right? So we are, in a sense, working on the next generation. That's how I look at it. That's how I look at it, because that, right? Because these people that want to do the work, they made that decision. Okay, I want to change something. Those are the people that are able to raise conscious kids, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of my videos, I make them for adults, but a lot of people are like, I showed this to my kids, and I think that's lovely. I think that's that's gonna bring the change. I don't know if
Yeah.
we'll be able to see it.
What about surrender? Because I mean, you've probably read the Surrender Experiment. Have you read it, the book?
No.
I think Sailor is the name. But like, how do you look at that? Like, because we always want to push things. That's how we grow up. We have to go for it, and push, push, push. And that's the only way we can get anywhere. And how much do you think just surrendering to the flow of life, is actually the way to go?
I think it's the base of everything. I think that it starts with total acceptance of the fact that if all realities exist, there is a chance, however small, that the worst case scenario is going to happen. And I think that if I don't surrender to accepting that that may be the case and that I'm going to be okay regardless because everything is for a divine purpose and for my growth, then I am going to only be attracting from fear. If I want something, but I don't surrender, as in to accept with all of my being that I may not get it and decide to be happy regardless. Whatever happens, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be okay and I'm going to be grateful because I'm going to know that it's for my highest good, even if I can't see it in the moment. If I don't surrender to that, then I'm going to be wanting to attract this because of fear of not having it. So when I am attracting from fear, inevitably I will attract fear. So I do think that surrendering is a key piece. And we see it all the time when we're like, oh, when I stopped looking for it, I found it. When I stopped, when I finally let this person go, they came back. When I finally found my perfect house that I wanted to buy when I finally got pregnant when I stopped trying and stuff like that. So I think it's an energy. Like surrender is an energy of letting go of the fear of not getting what you want.
Hmm. And where's the sweet spot then? You focus on something. Let's say you have a new project, right? And you already have this whole timeline, planned out. How the certain steps are, what the the milestones are. And at least with me, you're right. Like as soon as I had my like the whole plan locked down, start shit started to happen, right? Like nothing would work out the way I planned it, let's say. But like as soon
Mm-hmm.
as I said, okay, I have the vision for this. This is where it's supposed to go, and however I get there doesn't really matter. Then it would
Mm-hmm.
flow. And I mean
Mm-hmm.
that's just so crazy, right? But because like you have no control over the whole plan, right? Especially if the project is big. Like how because where's that sweet spot? Because I'm still trying and I'm still testing this because
Mm-hmm.
I've just had recently, like in these last 3-4 years, the exact same thing happened. Like it actually came to me, and then I got fixated on it. Then I put all my time and effort into it, and then it's like the universe, like, hey, relax.
Mm-hmm.
why
Yeah.
why are you so nailed down on this right now? It came to you, so why do you want this to be like that way?
Mm-hmm. I think it has to do a lot with that's when it gets really spiritual. That's when
Mm.
manifesting gets really spiritual because that's when you realize the completion. You are complete. You don't need that car, that business, that person. The moment that you sit in stillness, in total acceptance of what is, and connect with that nothing that is also everything, then the moment that you can be in that fulfillment just because you exist, I think that's when it gets the easiest to manifest. So it's like, I don't create friction with the reality of not having it. I know that I am enough. If you think, for example, if I ask you, right, like, why are you valuable? I can ask someone, why do you think that you're worth it? And you're like, well, my career, the fact that I overcame addiction, the fact of this and that, then that means that without all those things, you're not worthy, right? So if we take everything away, everything that you have manifested in your life, and it's just you, just the God that you are, if you can find the worth in that, that is surrender to me. To me, surrender is like, I am going to be whole and perfect, whether this happens or not. Now, because I'm a human and living this human experience, I'm going to work towards that. I'm going to try to manifest it, but not from a place of attachment to the outcome, more just because I enjoy the process. And that's when you know what your purpose is, because your purpose is something that you're going to do not as a means to an end, but as an end per se. I do these videos not because I need a job, but I do them because I am in a flow state when I do them. I love it, and I would do them for free, right? That's when you know. So then you surrender to the outcome, because all that matters is the right here, right now. Am I enjoying this? Am I being authentic when I do this? Am I connecting with my authenticity, my highest self?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. With me, like, I grew up in a household where, both my parents healers, into medicine. And I saw like a lot of the stuff that went wrong, the system pressure, how they're not, able to, do everything they want to do because, the system. And I said, okay, I'm not going into this. I'm never going to be of service to humanity. I'm always going to do business. And I went to study business, all that shit, And now it took me like 20 years to get back to this, right? And to really accept that is actually was my path all along.
Yeah.
And that's my true soul essence, was to serve humans and to serve humanity. And and it just happened that my gift was now with these topics, right? Because I just worked through them myself.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Like once you're in this, and it doesn't really matter that much, what the monetary gain is, because the money will be there, because if the energy is present, and if it's flowing, then it will always be there, right? Like it's beautiful.
I like to see it as you're working for God, right?
Yes.
Again, not a religious God, but more like if you follow God's path, not from an authoritarian place of like, read the Bible, but more as in like, follow your heart, what your calling is, that authentic thing that literally puts you in a flow state, then the path will reveal itself. And if there's obstacles, surrender, as in surrender by knowing that they are for your highest good. If you see the obstacle and you fight the obstacle, rather than being like, oh, okay, wait, where do I need to step up to not see this obstacle? Where can I elevate my consciousness above this issue? That's surrender, right? It's like, I don't see the obstacle and, nothing ever works for me. Of course this was going to happen and life is miserable, whatever, right? You surrender and you're like, oh, I understand. There's a highest reason for this to happen. That is surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're given that gift, you have to respect it and pass it on, right? That, like, especially with all the, people that serve humanity that I talk to, is also on this podcast, that's how they feel about a lot of stuff. And it just falls in your lap eventually. If you're meant to do this work, it's going to, if it's authentic, then it will fall into your lap at some point.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I always tell people when they don't believe in themselves, I always tell them, you are not respecting God, because you're God's offspring. And the moment that you think that you're not enough, you're thinking that God did something wrong. You think that God will put you here on earth being not enough and be like, you know what, try your best. No, there's always a gift. There's always a purpose, but God gave you free will. So you choose if you listen or not.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Beautiful ending. Where can people find you if they want to see your work?
You can find me on my YouTube channel. It's Cosmic Ari with a Y.
Yes.
You can find me on my Instagram, which is Cosmic Ari with an underscore. Perfect. And you can find me on TikTok.
Beautiful. Okay, Ariana, thanks a lot. That was great.
All right. Thank you. Nice conversation.